Thank you, Madge. Uh, as we just keep on focusing on Nane Nane, because it is going to be, I think, a declaration of a collective declaration of what it is that we believe in. I think it is important for us to also um, remind ourselves of why exactly we're doing this. We're not doing this as a recreational activity. We're not doing this as an attention seeking stunt. We're not doing this because other countries are doing it. We're doing it because we feel like enough is enough. In this country, we've seen that there's a systemic rot, and it's a system that needs to be overhauled. So we are not and personally, I'm not being gentle about the fact that these systems do not work. It's not about installing people or instituting people in offices that do not work, in offices uh, order of the day is corruption, in offices which you do not have autonomy, where if you're not controlled, you cannot week. That's why I'm saying it is very important for us to, one, come to the collective conscience, but also speak to the people on ground. Because currently, as we're holding the spaces, the president is also holding a campaign trail. Because if you listen to whatever it is that's happening on that trail, it quite literally is just a campaign. And it's almost as if it's trying to allay the fears of the people. But we do not have a problem with an individual, because even if we had a functioning if even if we have we remove an individual from office and replace him with a principled man, that would still be a problem. What we're calling for with this hashtag Ruto must go is a total overhaul of the system. We are not trying to have these broad-based conversations as they would have it, thinking in political factions, thinking of, we're just saying that this does not work. It is a total rethink of how we think of democracy and how we think of this country in terms of our independence. We still have a police force and not a police service. We still have corruption being the order of the day. We still have government official trading with their family members. Those kinds of things that we have said time without number are still going on. So as we go into Nane Nane, part of what we need to remember is we are not just trying to do a thing. It's not a retaliation. This is a conceptualization of the future we want. This is a rewriting of history as we would have it. When the colonialists were here, the Mau Mau said enough is enough, and they forged their future. And the various revolutions that have happened throughout time. This is us saying, from today henceforth, this is a system that we will want to work. It is not, a lot of people are trying to make it look as though we want to ban the country. And even if you think about the comparisons that they're making, it's just comparisons to try and instill fear. You've seen a lot of people who wanted to take advantage of the movement now gain their voices. You've seen goons come on the streets and abduct people and arrest and even beat and maim people. But you've also seen such enormous displays of confidence from various factions. I never thought that it is you could hold on to your comrade to ensure that they're not taken into police custody, into those tracks. I didn't know that it was not mandatory for anyone to be there. It's just that they have brutalized us and they want to beat us into submission and fear so badly, so that we lose our psyche and our collective desire for a better country. So if you're listening to the sound of my voice, whatever it is that we're doing is a total rewrite of what we want to see as a country. And I'm urging you not to give up. I'm urging you not to be afraid. I'm urging you not to feel discouraged because you're seeing that it seems as though some people are winning. Nobody is winning. We are saving this government from itself. People are trying to make it look as though we are trying to humiliate anybody. We are not trying to humiliate anybody. We're trying to say that we are tired of Kenya being compared to other countries. We want to write a story that works and functions for our country. So if you're listening to the sound of my voice, do not think that for a moment we are trying to oust a person so that we install a person that we love. No, we are inviting you to a total rethinking of this system. That is what we mean by Ruto must go. It means all elements of Rutoism, that all elements of corruption, all elements of cultism. It could be on Dingaism, Kenyattaism, Uhuruism, Kibakiism, all the isms that have bedeviled this country before. Those are the things we're saying we want to reimagine. So nobody has monopoly over the answer to the question, what next? What next will depend with what you decide to do from today. In as we marshal for Nane Nane, communities and informing them that this is exactly what we are going to do. If we leave that responsibility to only one person, that's when you try and see them try and impose a leader on you. Like I've said numberless times, I am not a leader. I'm not a leader for this movement. I am a leader in my own right, but I'm not a leader for the movement. But everyone is trying to narrow down this movement to certain individuals. But this is an awakening of the entire country's conscience. It is not limited to Gen Z. It is a Kenyan political activity that we are undertaking and saying, this is not right, it's not working for us, and we have to rethink it. So if you're here and you keep on asking yourself, so what next? There's no time, because we are at the tipping point where we have the opportunity to rewrite the Kenyan narrative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kasmuel. Just two questions before we proceed. Do you think the other generations, especially the older generation, understand what you need or what you communicate? Question number one. And question number two, what would you then tell them? For example, if you could tell the first, I think he's dropped. Okay, I cannot see him anymore. I think he'll come back. I'll keep the questions for him when he comes back. Professor, over to you. Professor Kibwana? Oh, Kasmuel is back. Okay, Kasmuel, you dropped. But the question is, now I've heard what you said, I've had the points that you have really communicated. So now I'm just flipping it a little bit. So I want now your perception. What's your perception about how the other, especially the older generation, perceive what you say? Yesterday or the days ago, I was taught that I had a Gen Z come on a space and say Gen Z now means generation zote. Yeah. But again, back to you. Do you feel understood? One. Two, what would be the 10 things saying now you can use? Let's say just use Marge. Marge, I expect A, B, C, least even 5. Back to you.
Thank you, Madge. I think the psyche of the people understand whatever the psyche of the movement is. It's it's just that it is out of the ordinary. When people hear change is going to come, we usually feel that change is driven by one person. We usually feel as though change is driven by one political party, and that is what has always been happening. We have always been in a situation of a false dilemma in this country, but this is a time where we're saying that yes, you people are clamoring and saying that you're making the changes, but it seems as though we are rejecting everything. And when people look at it, they say these people are ungrateful and whatnot. It's because people are forced into a false dilemma. Based on the people I have met, based on the conversations I have had with people on the ground in terms of civic education, because I believe this thing we have to do it everywhere, on the front of the protests, in the media, and more importantly, in the communities. The people are slowly starting to understand whatever it is that we are about, and and part of that, it gives me so much hope. But then if we don't, if we all do not play our parts in being very vocal about this and owning this, if we allow ourselves to fall back to the traditional false dilemma that we always are, and we're like, so only one name has to rise out of a movement, we run the risk of cheapening what this thing is. Because even if you see whatever is happening currently, people are trying to shift the conversation from the issues to individuals. And I'm very happy that the people understand. They understand this, but also the government is doing, and the establishment, if I may, is doing its best to ensure that people are still misinformed and people still they're trying to make it look as though it's government versus opposition. And even if you see the way people present the wording, they're like it's anti-government or whatever, those kinds of things. But luckily the people are kind of seeing between through the ruse. It's still work in progress that needs to be done, and it's a change that's going to come either way, because the young people who are leaderless, tribeless, fearless understand what this cause is about, and I know that we will bring about and midwife this change. Two, on agenda, I think it is very clear that we we want a Kenya that works for all of us, and we don't need to belabor this point, that we want a police service, not a police force, that we want a functional government that's rid of corruption. But a lot of these things we will be able to establish them in a different and a new system, in a total overhaul of this system. That's why I'm not even too keen on stating demands, because I know, even if the question seems as though it leans towards what are the fixes that we can make, it feels as though we might need to make demands upon the current existing system. And we are saying that system does not work because it is laden with corrupt officials, and the corruption is rooted, it goes so deep that for us to deal with it, if we were to think about just sentencing a few people, getting a few heads rolling, we will still be in the same position in 3 years. We will still be facing these same challenges. So a lot of it is in thinking about what does a new Kenya look like. We know that in the root, at the very, very base of the root, we have a problem with corruption. We have a problem with individual acting as states and auctioning our future. We have a problem with bad governance and lack of accountability. These four things explain all the problems, all the lists which we could talk about. But the only way we deal with them at the root level is by actually actualizing Nane Nane and saying we are inviting the whole country to rethink what leadership looks like, what governance looks like, what public healthcare looks like, what finance looks like, what debt looks like for this country. So I think limiting it to a few reforms would seem as though we are petitioning the existing system. We're asking our oppressor to find different ways to oppress us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kasmuel. That's really well noted, and the point has arrived home. I would like to say that I think days ago there was an interview you did and you were mistreated. I would like to state that these